Okay, I guess, so everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So guys, we are gonna, I know a lot of attendees have joined in, but we are gonna give 1 more minute. A lot of people are joining in, but thank you everyone for tuning in. Really, really appreciate your time this morning. And we have phenomenal speaker joining Milestone today to kind of share their recovery strategies. And I know a lot of folks, actually one of the highest attended webinar. We are gonna give few more minutes while people are joining in before we get started. So just hanging tight, and I'm sure you're gonna really enjoy everything speakers have to say. Wonderful, wonderful. And we are recording it, so just in case if you miss anything, we will be sending out recording, and also we are doing Facebook Live. So if there is any question, anything you miss out, definitely please feel to look back. Okay, so here we are gonna get started now. Welcome guys, welcome everybody on the panel. Really, really appreciate your time. Just a quick background. If you're new to Milestone CRG framework and webinar, we started doing CRG, Crisis Recovery and Growth Framework webinar when this entire COVID took our life away, or we went into the lockdown. Most of the country, or probably entire country, is right now going through a recovery, and our recovery framework is all about what are businesses, what do we need to do. There is a new reality for everything we need to do, because unfortunately there is no process document for pandemic, and this is a new normal. And I know we are all tired talking about new normal, but this is a new reality, and there are a lot of awesome things we could do in this new reality. So with that, let me give a brief introduction. First of all, Purna, great friend of mine, Search Personality of the Year. I've had pleasure of sharing stage with her, and just top paid expert. I don't know how we managed to get her on a panel, but thank you so much, Purna, for taking out time to share your insight. With that, we also have Kurt. Kurt is Chief Solution Officer for Sojourn, great partner with Milestone. Milestone uses Sojourn as a travel intent partner. And we had a pleasure of doing webinar, I think a couple of weeks back, right, Kurt? It was a lot of great insight. So thank you so much, Kurt, for joining us today. Frederick, Frederick is CEO of Optimizer, great friend, have known him for 15 plus years or more. But within Milestone, we use a lot of his scripts, a lot of his insight around automation, and Frederick really touches a lot of different industries. So, and then I don't know if you have checked out his books, so please do, around automation and scripting and everything we need to do to scale and get highest returns. So please do check that out. Ilya is our head of performance, manages our paid operation and paid marketing. Ilya, it's great to have you with us and sharing strategies. Vinny as director of paid operation, and he's going to be sharing some amazing case study during this lockdown period. What has happened, what is working, what's not working, and what should we be doing? So with that, thank you all. Really, my personal thank you to all of you for taking out time. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, so what are we covering? CRG framework, if you're brand new to CRG framework is all around what do we need to do during this pandemic, right? We don't have a process document. We need to adapt, we need to move fast, and we need to keep changing our strategies based on consumer demand, based on market demand. And that leads to what's happening to the market globally, within US, what are our consumers looking for, and how should we pivot our marketing strategies, especially when it comes to digital, because digital will yield maximum returns in short time, but there are things we have to do to pivot and meet our customer requirement or consumer requirement. Why should we start paid search, and is it right for your vertical? And if it's really working, what's not working? What should be a checklist? Some of the proven strategies, which we are going to share with you, then also some case study. So with that, I can tell you guys there is just phenomenal information with our speakers are going to share with all of us. So just if you're new to Milestone, Milestone is an omni-channel service and solution company and a product company. There are different verticals. We cater to hospitality, fintech, automobile, healthcare, finance, technology. We are just recently, during this, actually, all this lockdown, we did release our schema product. Really proud of it. I know Poona and I have shared several sessions around schema. So finally, all that insight is part of our schema, but we are not talking about schema. I'm sure you know Milestone, that's why you're here. And if you're brand new to Milestone, please do check out our website and blog and everything. Okay, and just the last slide around recovery framework. We do have a lot of thought leaders from different industry joining us pretty much every single week. Last week we had Bob Gilbert. This week we have phenomenal thought leader between Poona, Frederick. Next week we have Rob Cole and Lauren Gray. And following week, we have Chip Conley. And if you guys have not heard Chip Conley, he's a personal mentor of mine, but he was a head of Airbnb, New York bestseller. Just, I can keep going on and on. So amazing speaker. Please do check it out. And he's not only going to be talking about recovery for one industry, but what are the must-have for leadership, for you to, do well during this recovery stage. And then we have Chip Roger from AHLA. More information coming your way. Please do check out our care page and our recovery page on Milestone side, where we are housing all this information. With that, I think I was so happy to see crisis move to recovery. Poona, I was just kind of remembering our tequila days, I guess. I don't know if we can get those days back for next 3 months or 6 months, but really, I was like, oh my God, are we gonna get to go to Vegas, and are we gonna get to take awards, and we are gonna be together again? That dreaming moment, right? And all of us are kind of trying to figure out what is the new normal and how do we pivot? How are we gonna attract our customers? How do we make sure that we gain their confidence? And as we were thinking about recovery, what we realized that marketing funnel is changed all of a sudden, because you can't build a demand if people don't trust you. First thing is that confidence, right? Do they trust you? Do they like you? And do they feel when they come to you, whichever business, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, they can feel confident working with you. So the very first thing we said is there is actually a new funnel. Top of the funnel for a marketing funnel is called building confidence, and then building demand, then building conversion. And actually it's become even more important to build trust, because there are so many more choices today, right? There is, and again, you can take every single vertical, every single business. There is a lot more everybody has to do to kind of capture your entire marketing funnel. So with that, we are gonna, today's webinar is all around recovery. Overall, actually last week or 2 weeks back, California was like yellow, but so glad that it's open. I was just trying to check out, okay, what is open, right? What is the definition of open? But it's awesome that there are only 2 states which are partially closed and everything is opening. Now, when you think about, you look at everything is opening, but then what's happening to consumer, right? In 3 months, everything is kind of changed. We have developed new hobbies. We kind of don't want to, there is no business travel. If you specifically think about hospitality, people are taking short trips or long trips, but people are kind of figuring out drive-by location. And it's really funny that a lot of traffic has moved from mobile to desktop. And it's as closer 1 week out. People are booking window is almost 1 week out. People are spending more time in online searching and demand and nearby things to do, which you can kind of do it with your family. But what was the most interesting thing was safety and hygiene. And I thought, oh my God, that is actually the reason we came up with building confidence, because safety and hygiene and open. Are you open for business? And is it safe for me to come and stay with you or to work with you, or everything around your safety, hygiene, your confidence? Those queries are just kind of skyrocketing. And that is a change in consumer demand. So let's look at what happened in the last 30 days. And again, we just kind of decided to look at hotel as an industry. We are going to be covering several other industry, but instead of business hotel, people are looking for family hotel, right? And there is a really pent up demand, but people are looking for safety. What is your policy? They're looking for discounts. They are looking for deals. And it's like building your new funnel all over again. So what are they looking for? Is restaurants even open? Then is Disneyland opening? And we have a lot of customers around Disneyland, around resources. What are the travel alert? What are the policies around, what are the travel restrictions? And if you think of it, is it safe for me to travel with my family? What are some of the precautions taken within a business, right? So this is our new funnel, right? Building confidence, which is key for, in our opinion, which is key for us to gain customer trust, build confidence everywhere. When you look at any business, first thing is that you have to build confidence, whether you are in your communication messaging, whatever you are sending out. Do your customers think that you are strong and they feel safe doing business with you? Then building demand, and then driving conversion. And when conversion happens, it's actually a little bit more. It's building trust, right? Is your messaging change, and everything is revolved around what consumers and what market is looking for. With that, I am gonna actually have Kurt review his slides and his presentation. Give me, Kurt, 1 second. I am gonna look at my, okay. Go ahead, Kurt. You are a presenter now.
Okay, great. Thanks. So first off, thanks, Banu, for having me. It's been great to get to know you. Granted, would have been great to get to know you in better times, but silver linings of everything nonetheless. So what I wanted to do today is really give people a little bit of a sense of that recovery, of where we're going and what we're doing. Let's see here. Kind of slides are jumping a touch. Okay, I'm back in control. And so first off, what I wanted to do is just give you a little bit of a sense of kind of who we are and where we fit into everything. Our goal at Sojourn is to help hotels and attractions and destinations drive direct demand. And we do this through multi-channel advertising that's driven by artificial intelligence and data. And I think the data piece is really what we're talking about today, because when we're pulling millions and millions of real-time data points to provide insights like I'll be sharing with today, the key is that we're keeping kind of a constant pulse on what's happening. And that is always important, but it's even more important now as you were showing, they're just changing dynamics that you might not expect. You know, is the hotel open? Not a search term that was even in the realm, and now it's a big thing. So that's really what I want to walk through today. So what we're going to do is we've dug through the data and we've looked at what are the key things that we're seeing. And first off, there is recovery. It is slow, but it is happening. As Benu mentioned, drive markets are dominating. So what we're seeing is that, therefore, hotels are leading the recovery, and there's some recovery in kind of regional flights, and we'll show you that too. Because the short haul flights is what's kind of driving a lot of the interest. So before we kind of dig into the deep stuff, we are seeing recovery, but it's gradual. And so when we pull back from a global standpoint, you know, obviously what this shows is COVID was a crusher. I mean, there is no doubt. If you look at the activity between March and April, we just got hammered. And this is on a global basis. It started first with APAC, then, you know, moved as we saw COVID move into Europe, into the US, etc. But we really want to talk about recovery. So in order to do that, we kind of need to look at kind of a new start date, if you will. So a lot of what I want to walk through is looking at things from kind of April forward so that we can see the more details around the recovery. Benu, if you could move the slide one forward. I'm not sure that I've got. There we go. Thank you. So taking a closer look, it's important to see just how much, when we just look at the recovery piece, you see the dramatic difference between hotel recovery and flight recovery. And it's most important first to look at searches, because searches give a sense of interest, right? Am I curious? Do I want to move forward with things? And what you're seeing is, on a hotel side, very steep recovery in the US, also a steep recovery in APAC. Things are very bumpy in Central and South America because, as you've been probably following the news, recovery has been pretty bumpy there. COVID kind of hit later and has been hitting on a more or less consistent basis. And we're seeing kind of a slow, steady growth for Asia Pacific. If you jump to the next slide, then we want to look at bookings, right? Because sure, I'm curious, you know, I might want to go to Hawaii, but am I ready to book? And that's where we see an even more dramatic difference between bookings in flights and bookings in hotel. As you can see, dramatic uptick in bookings between those two. Whereas flights, you're seeing a much more kind of like slow and steady view. I think it's also important, Benu, if you go to the next slide, then what we wanted to do is we said, okay, it's interesting to look at that global level, what's happening in hotel, what's happening in search, but the recovery is not even everywhere. And we found this to be really interesting, but at the same time, not surprising, right? Trust is low, confidence is low. If I'm going to start thinking about where I'm going to go, I'm a lot more comfortable getting in my car than anything else. So hotel searches domestic, super high. If I'm going to fly, I'm going to fly short haul. So you see that, steep growth in domestic flight searches also coming out of COVID. What's also interesting is intra-regional, what you see is Europe really leading the way here, which is not surprising because if you think about how domestic works in the US is a really big country. When you're in Europe, they're thinking intra-region and domestic are pretty similar. And you need to fly if you're thinking about going from London to Spain, you're going to get on a plane. But no matter where you are, true international travel is just really, really down. And so what we're seeing is it's that drive and short haul that's going to be leading the charge. And so then what we wanted to do is dig even deeper and go and see what's happening at a regional level. So it looks like from a global level that it's definitely more domestic, more local. It seems like it should be more of a drive market play. So then the data that we did is we said, okay, let's look at hotel bookings. We took luxury as a market here. We said, let's just look at a couple specific markets, Connecticut, kind of upstate New York, and then Napa, Sonoma. And let's see what was the trend of luxury hotel bookings for customers less than 500 miles from their home, okay? So if you look in January, in 2019, about 73% of those bookings in Connecticut, et cetera, were within 500 miles. January, February, pretty consistent with how things had been in the past. May, June, complete shift. If you look at typically what happens as you move into the summer months, these markets for luxury, your local traffic goes down, your distance travel, therefore, is going up. So greater than 500 miles is going up. But in 2020, if you look, it is a steady climb upward of local travel. In fact, if you look at Northeast, 12-point increase in bookings for visitors in less than 500 miles. In Napa, 18-point increase. So this is not an 18% increase. This is an 18-point increase. And talking to clients in Napa and Sonoma, this is ringing true completely and even moving more into the summer. Just the deeper out-of-towners are not traveling from those far distances. And so we also then wanted to look and say, okay, of those people that aren't driving, we saw kind of this kick in short haul flights. And so we looked at bookings to markets where typically flights really play a major role. So Colorado ski resorts. Now you think of ski resorts as a big winter experience. Ski resorts now have become summer resorts. And that summer resort market is a critically important market. And so what we looked at here was, again, what is the impact of flights and what are the trends that we see? In 2019, you saw a decent growth in those short haul. But what you're seeing is in that kind of mid-range 500 to 1,000 miles, you're seeing a big uptick in 2020 versus in 2019. In blue, you saw things come down. Same thing from a long haul standpoint. If you look at June, last year, 29% of bookings into Colorado ski resorts were from greater than 1,000 miles, truly long haul travel, versus here, not so much. And then the last thing that we really looked at was when people are looking to fly. So here we looked at lead time. So the higher the line, the further out people were looking. So as you'd imagine, things were in pretty steady state January till early March. Then all of a sudden lead times just shot through the roof. And what you're seeing is that a lot of your drive market, more traditional domestic markets, those lead times are starting to come down. But in kind of more long thought markets like Hawaii or Mexico, Caribbean, you're still seeing those lead times pretty high up, which means people are definitely thinking of traveling there, but no time soon. And so jumping to the next slide, the last thing tied to this that we said, okay, well, what are they looking at from, is that a normal thing or an abnormal thing? And it's definitely not a normal thing. If you look at Mexico in particular, you're seeing searches and bookings out into early next year are actually at or above where they were the previous year. So there's actually a ton of demand if, to Manu's point, we can build that confidence, build that trust that people are ready to go. So then what we do is kind of like, what do you do with it? So what we've been thinking about is kind of four main things. One is you got to catch the recovery. You've got to get in there because people are searching, people are interested, and they're now starting to book. So if you've kind of been on the sidelines, you better get back into the game. The second thing is definitely think local. So when you're working with partners, make sure that they understand how to do geofencing. Make sure that they know how to do local targeting versus broad international kind of blanket targeting. The other piece is, and this speaks to what Manu was mentioning also, is we've got to now move our thinking up. We've got to think about what do we do to entice people via social, and then also catch them via search and meta search and remarketing to convert. But you can't just be there ready to capture the demand. You've got to get in there to help drive that demand. And the last thing is everybody's on a budget. And what we're seeing is that DMOs, tourism boards are really leaning into the recovery to help hotels, attractions, and others build into this. We're at Sojourn, I think we're running about 30 different co-marketing programs and co-op programs for destinations, whether it's a Visit Florida or Las Vegas. And that's really helping to stir and drive that demand. So I definitely recommend look for partners because everybody's got to drive that performance forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know where we are going for Father's Day, Napa. Awesome. With that, Puna, I am gonna pass control to you. Give me just 1 second and full control. Here you go, Puna.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for giving me control. Thank you for having me here today. It's such a pleasure to be right here with you all. Let me just make sure I can move this. Oh, there we go. Perfect. If we think about it, even though it's only been like a handful of weeks, all of us have had such sort of seismic changes, almost irrevocable changes that have happened to us in our behavior patterns as well. For example, I don't know, so many of us celebrated birthdays or big milestones at home, and like a weekly Zoom hangout became so much more fun and exciting. And like the bar of Purna makes better drinks than anywhere outside. We just got used to doing that. We also saw other changes in behavior, things like hobbies that were declining in popularity suddenly surged back up in interest, or if we look in automotive, Binu, maybe you can take control of the slides. It's now working for me.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
There we go. Or if we think about buying cars and shopping for automotive, and I know Fred's going to go into a lot more detail about the automotive vertical later, but I noticed a couple of trends. Not only were people starting to look increasingly more for previously owned cars or used cars, the way that we were shopping for cars was completely changing. there was a rise in people looking to buy cars online, which is traditionally, it's always been an in-person activity. So it's very interesting that we're seeing this big, deep change across our behavior. And some of these changes may reverse, some of these may keep going. But what's unique and what's at the heart of it, Benu, on the next slide, is that search is top of mind for consumers. Search is the one that has really shown us, if we click next, um, search is the one that's really shown that as physical stores started to close, all of that demand didn't disappear, it just went online. We started spending a lot more time online, we started consuming a lot of online media, and all of the search trends and search behavior reflects it. Like just as we saw in 2008, like search continues to be even more important at a time like this. And for us marketers, what search does is it offers a view into consumer behavior and intent, right? It plays such a big part into understanding, like, what are people searching for? What are the things that they have been really looking for? What do they want? What do they not want? And we can find all of these based on what people are searching for. And we've been spending a lot of time at Microsoft Advertising really analyzing this consumer behavior that I talked about. And here's the key. Here's why paid search is so much more important now. It's that digital advertising has never had an audience like this, where some medias don't quite fit in well, but search is the destination where people keep coming back to again and again. And if we look at the next slide as to why paid search has been like this steady ship in stormy waters, there's a few different reasons. One, it's a completely agile media. If I wanted to pivot to like the sudden increase in toilet paper or hand sanitizers, for example, it's much easier to switch out paid search ads than it is traditionally other types of traditional media. Also, paid search generates the highest return on advertising across media channels per dollar invested in the US. So it's not surprising when budgets are getting limited, budgets are getting impacted. Paid search has been impacted the least, and it can be seen as the most recession-proof media channel potentially. So based on that, I wanted to cover 3 things that you could do across 3 different stages of PPC. What can we do right now as we're still opening up? I'll look at a couple of tips for a restoration strategy, and I just want to give you some ideas on new opportunities in case you're seeing new or different traffic than you want before. So let's start with the immediate strategy. Very often we would get asked this question, oh, should I go dark? Should I stop advertising? Advertising is not a crime, right? And people will still want to have ads there. They want to be helped. And that's the thing, like all those aggressive ads that hit people on the head, people weren't a fan of those even in like pre-pandemic days. So they're not going to work that now. Especially now at times like this, our research showed that consumers have clear ideas on how they expect businesses to respond. And they want brands to lead with empathy, to connect with consumer sentiments, right? This is the time to be seen as really helpful. And I don't just mean like, we're here with you, because what does that really mean? So here's some tips on how you can be empathetic, and it all comes down to your messaging. So a few things to consider is to really keep going back, and every week there's changes, every week sentiment varies, people's habits change. Do this on a weekly basis. Go in, review your message, see if it aligns with the current situation, see if you are being helpful. If we can hit next, is it tying into what people are really saying? So if you are open, reinforce the fact that people have no cancellation fees. And I know Ilya is going to talk about this in a lot more depth soon, and he's got some great tips there. and keep adjusting and adapting your messaging. If you are a toy store, for example, and you maybe some type of toys might be maybe the superhero ones or the action hero ones tend to be the most popular. But at a time like now, you think that what's useful? What are my products that are going to be more useful? Maybe it's your educational toys. Go out there and increase your ads, increase awareness around the products that are likely going to do well now. And also be sure to talk about anything that you're doing in your ads or about any programs that give back. And when I talk about this, I don't just talk about the text. I also want to think about the images. It was so funny. Like the other day, I was trying to create a landing page for a program I was doing internally at Microsoft, and I just took your standard like meeting room, people sitting on the table, as a slide in there. And one of my colleagues was like, "You know what, Verna? That is so bizarre looking, and that gives me anxiety to look at that slide." And I was like, yes, you're absolutely right, right? This is not what our world looks like. Rather than having a crowded office, you want to be able to show somebody working alone at home, or maybe somebody doing yoga in front of their computers. All of these things that can align to updated messaging and also what people are right now can be, it's incredibly important to keep doing and to focus on. Again, of course, if your company is doing something that is amazing, please highlight it. There's so many examples of these. If you are tech and telecom companies, they're waiving all of their data limits or their fees to try to offer something back. Food service companies are waiving fees. So like for food delivery are saying, we won't take a fee. Or if we go to the travel companies, traditionally airlines and all, like a big reason to avoid booking has been like, oh no, cancellation fee, late, all of these like very punitive costs to change or cancel. If they are removing these barriers, you want to make sure you're talking about it. Or if you're a grocery store that has special shopping hours for an at-risk population, all of these things are worth highlighting in your PPC ad copy. These are the things that are going to give you, let you get set apart from the competition and give you a leg up. Now, there's a few more strategies so that at Microsoft Advertising that we want to recommend to PPCs today. So I put this little checklist together for you all to access later, so you all get the deck afterwards. Milestone will send it out. So again, I'm not going to read through all of this now. It'll take too long. Here's really the part that we're getting to, right? In most states, as Benu showed us, we're getting really, really close to this restoration stage. What should we be really thinking about right now to help get us prepared for it? It all starts with your audiences. And it starts with us being a lot more strategic in how we create remarketing lists. A lot of us, when we'll create a remarketing list, will tend to only have like one cookie duration, right? So we'll have, this is my list of cart abandoners, and I'm going to put them in my remarketing list for 60 days. Boom, and that's it. And then we'll serve them remarketing ads. That's not bad, but we can do a lot better, especially if we could build a list of the same logic, but create multiple versions. So maybe all the cart abandoners are the ones that didn't convert. We could create 4 versions of that same list and give it all different cookie duration. One list for 60, one list for 90, 120, 180. So 180 is our max cookie duration on Microsoft Advertising. Google is 540 days, just a difference. Now, why would I want to do that? Why do I want to have those 4 different versions of the same list? One is I can ensure I have them in for the long term. But remarketing and paid search, the way it works is that every time they do a search, and if it triggers your ad, the person on that list is going to see the exact same ad the entire time for the entire length of the cookie window. But if I had 4 different versions of the list, then I could put them in different ad groups and show different ad copy. So for example, people who didn't convert, in the first 60 days, I'd show them one ad. In the next 60 days or the next 30 days, I could show them a different version of an ad, and that could make it really, really helpful. So build those remarketing lists, expand the length of your cookie windows. Similar to that, you want to think about building a cancellation audience list, right? Especially if you're in the travel industry or like the restaurant booking or anything like that. They came, they booked, sadly, they could not come and enjoy, so they canceled. Hey, they liked you enough to buy from you the first time. There's lots of reasons why you could convince them to come back or incentivize them to come back and either go forth and repurchase or just rebook what there was. So make sure you're having a separate list of cancellations. And then most of all, I want to encourage all of you to adjust your KPIs. Give yourself a little flexibility. Like we're not getting our train back on the tracks. Like where we're going, it's going to be a whole new track that we're going to be on. And it may be only slightly different, but there will be differences. And there's still a lot of unknowns. For example, if we go to the next slide, Beno, if we start thinking about different scenarios, let's say once physical stores open up, food, grocery, like shopping deliveries that have been thriving now, are they going to see a drop? Well, people will want to go more in person. Or is there going to be a new demand for financial advisors or financial guidances now that people have just seen the painful effects of a recession? Or what's going to happen to the housing market? Not just because of like the peak season rates or if interest rates change, but also there's been this big push with an increase in remote working or companies increasingly going fully remote. For example, Twitter is a company that says like anybody can work remotely. Are people going to move away from like the very populated, very expensive cities to live and move somewhere else? Well, we don't know. We'll have to see. Or this is an interesting one, especially tied to what Kurt was talking about earlier with travel, where even if the restrictions are gone, like, will people still be hesitant to fly? And will that lead to even this continued increase in road trips? And if it does, is it going to put more demand on auto parts and services? Honestly, every industry vertical we go to, we can go ahead and find scenarios that we should think about. But in the meantime, if you're putting together a restoration list, I wanted to give you a checklist for that as well. Okay, finally, let me give you some stuff that we should be paying attention now to ensure that we are able to capture new opportunities and also not do a little health check to make sure we're not missing out on any potential opportunities. So one of the really interesting things that jumped out to me was this whole re-rise of the desktop. Like, think about your own behavior. Now that we're home more, we tend to be a lot more on our PCs just because we can, or we're working from home and on the PC anyway. It's just easier to stay on. Like I know yesterday I was done working and in the middle, I had 10 minutes between calls. So I went and like ordered my groceries, for example. You want to go back to optimizing for desktop targeting. I mean, hey, mobile is still important. And yes, it was the year of mobile for 10 years, but desktop has suddenly seen a big surge. So make sure we're not ignoring desktop. Another question I'm getting asked right now is, should I just turn off my campaigns or should I keep them running? Like, what do? Don't turn them off would be our recommendation. We would say keep it running at the absolute minimum, at the very minimum bid. Even if you just keep it running with a 5-cent bid, which is Microsoft Advertising's minimum bid, then you're still in a better place. So you don't have the systems not going to have to keep learning again. Ads are not going to have to go in for approval again. Your DSA campaigns won't have to recrawl. Everything will still be running. And when you increase the budget, it's easier to scale back up versus if you went dark and completely paused it for now. And then you want to be able to expand as well. If we click next, please. You want to make sure you're trying to broaden your audiences so you're reaching all potential new customers. Like expand your list, expand your keywords, go forth and see where else you can find new opportunities. Also, I want to walk you through a fourth step. You also want to think about native advertising too. Microsoft Advertising has both search network as well as a native network with our audience network, or make sure you're using display, like scale your audiences, combine, do things across different types of platforms and channels that will be much more effective. I also put in a checklist for you, but before I do the checklist, I want to talk to you about a health check. So it's 4 steps. The first one, audit your audiences. Take both the high level view, but also drill down deeply. It is worth taking a half day or an entire half week to go ahead and do an in-depth in your audiences. These are going to be your best friends right now. So go ahead and make sure you're putting bid adjustments. Something I see very commonly is that people will put on in-market audiences in observe-only mode, and then they'll forget to go on and adjust the bids. So do go back to your in-market, especially if it's been on observation mode, and grow that. Also look at do a competitive gap analysis. Use your tools like Auction Insights that both Google and Microsoft offer, and go and see who tends to outrank you, who is the one who tends to have more impression share. Find these people and take a look at their strategies. Find new keyword opportunities to help you stay ahead. And then go to see if there's anything that you may accidentally be doing to hurt yourself, which could be like a negative keyword conflict report. And also look at your share of voice dashboard to make sure that everything that you're going is being optimized according to where it should be. So make sure you're not losing share of voice because of budget, which could be something you could easily move. Or maybe your impression share or share of voice is different on different devices. Once again, I have a little checklist for you here for you could go in and things that you could go to make sure you're able to capture and find new opportunities. So to quickly recap, I would say that when it comes to right now, like the biggest thing you can do to help yourself is focus on your messaging and images, and then start optimizing your audience lists and strategies and do a health check so that you're prepared for restoration and all of the new opportunities. And if you are looking for additional insights into how different verticals are performing, or if you want more insights into how different geographies are performing, these are some complementary resources that you can just click on and access whenever you need. So finally, I would say that, for marketers, our job for so long has been all about the data and the ROI. But what this time has really proven to us time and again that ultimately it's all about the humans and finding ways to empathize and serve our audiences in ways that they want to be spoken to. And at the end of the day, like paid search is probably one of the most human ways of all. So thank you so much for having me on. I'll hand it back to you, Benu.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. And you just said it so well. It's all about that human element and empathy for your audience and who's coming. So with that, Frederick, I am gonna try one more time, I'm gonna try and see if you can control, otherwise I'm happy to control and do it. Give me 1 second. Here you go, Frederick. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for having me, Benu and Milestone team, and a great presentation so far by Purna. Definitely a lot of stuff she said. It's detailed, it's tactical, but we've tried it as well, and it actually does work. So go back to that presentation, look at it again, and do the stuff she told you to do, because it's going to help you. And Kirk, also great information on the industry, of course, and what's happening in travel. So my company is Optimizer, and Optimizer is a tool vendor. We work with a lot of PPC agencies, big PPC direct advertisers. So we see a little bit of data across the board, many verticals. And the Milestone team asked me to take a focus today on one vertical to make it a bit more of a storyline. And so we're going to talk about automotive. But my background in the industry is that I joined Google all the way back in 2002. That's how I met Benu. She came to conferences when I was speaking on a panel on behalf of Google, usually talking about quality score and how to get better positions in the rankings. And obviously Benu was there. She was like, hey, how does it work? Like, do videos, tell me more. So we became friends that way, and really happy to be doing the session today. So as far as what I wanted to cover, a few things, so you can read this, but basically we're going to talk a bit about the industry, what shifted, and then some tactical advice. And I do like to go a little bit deeper in the weeds, so bear with me. But the hope is that you'll be able to take away some very specific action items that you'll be able to put into good use for your accounts and your companies later today. So we've already covered this quite a bit, right? Consumer certainly has changed. Like that's, we keep talking about the new normal, and that means that consumers are just changed. Will I ever go back and get a professional haircut? I don't know. It seems to be working pretty well without that, right? And so how does that apply to your own industries? Now we're talking about states reopening, and you saw the slides about which states are open, partially open. But the big question ultimately remains, like, even when we go back to some semblance of normal, like, what does the consumer do? Like I just said, like, am I going to get a haircut? It's not because I can that I will, because maybe I'm still worried. And so here was a survey that was done of people, and they basically said, well, grocery stores are open. Do you feel comfortable going into that? And most people say, yes, they do feel somewhat comfortable. Not actually as high a number as I would have thought, but still 56% of people, right? But then when it comes to something where maybe the online options are a bit better, like in terms of buying clothes, or you're concerned about touching clothes that somebody else has tried on, right? Usually you go to a grocery store, you put the thing in your cart and you're not trying it on and touching it all over. When it comes to clothes, people are very uncomfortable going back into clothing stores. And so I think that the big question everyone has to ask is, well, what are consumers really going to do? And it's not just about what they are allowed to do. And so that impacts things. And so what that really means is we can't just use our business acumen and our instinct and our gut feeling to have these insights and say, hey, this is the new strategy because we think this is going to be the shift. And so specifically when it came to the automotive vertical, I talked to a bunch of my customers, and Paul Jobson was very helpful in regards to this. He works with Bruce Auto. But I went to him and I said, like, listen, I would think that more people are going to be buying commuter cars because nobody wants to go on a crowded subway train because that's a great place to get sick. So are you selling more sedans now that people can come back? And he said, no, that's actually not the case. What we've seen, somewhat unexpectedly, is actually a lot more trucks being sold. And if you think about it, it makes sense. So all of a sudden, every store, every gym, every cash register has to put up plastic sheets, has to move the cash register. So people who do construction or those types of projects, all of a sudden in much more demand than before. And so, new trucks being bought by companies that do that type of construction work. And so the way to really figure that out for yourselves is go onto Google Trends or go to Microsoft and look at their data, but don't just trust your gut. Look at what the numbers say. All right. And so when you see here trucks and sedans and convertibles being sold, go click next here. Actually, I'm not sure these are the new slides. So I'm going to have to explain to you what's happening on this slide. So what's interesting, if you look at, and I hope you can see my mouse, is right here we see a dip where COVID is happening, right? So fewer trucks are being sold, but we see a much more significant recovery in trucks than we see in sedans and convertibles. Now, when it comes to trucks, there's this kind of somewhat unusual spike here in the October-November timeframe. That was Elon Musk announcing the Cybertruck. So if you really want a big recovery, hire Elon Musk to hype your product. That is the #1 way to get things done. But if he's not available to you, look at the data and see where consumers are shifting to themselves. Okay, and so then the other thing you could look at in automotive terms is new versus used. And so you saw that there was a much more significant and pronounced drop in the purchase or the search behavior for used vehicles as opposed to new vehicles. But we also see that that has recovered, and it's actually recovered to a point where it's stronger than before. So there has been a shift of consumers wanting to buy more used vehicles. The other thing, by the way, right? So we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data and letting the machines automate this. So you might say, well, hey, we're going to be pushing a lot of inventory based on what we see consumers looking for. But you also have to pause for a moment and think about, is your supply going to match that? And that's something that PPC doesn't generally see, right? And that's where you have the business insight. But so again, the example in talking to automotive dealerships was that demand may be coming back, but a lot of these factories that were producing cars were offline for a couple of months. And so in some way, you may not have to do PPC for every vehicle you did in the past, because some of these will just sell out because the inventory is so limited. The new stuff coming onto the dealership lot is so limited, right? So shift your focus and maybe prioritize on the things that have a little bit less demand and pushing those, right? Could be counterintuitive, but you have to put your business acumen together with what you see in the data here. And based on that, you can come up with a strategy that's really going to work. And then Perna already mentioned it, but I really do love this data from Microsoft. So just wanted to give a shout out again. Tons of stuff in there. It's updated basically weekly, and it tells you what states are open, what people are searching for. And this is for automotive, but it's also for hotels and a couple of other verticals. So super useful. So go and look at that. Now, they've also already talked about messaging, right? So the problem is that you probably have had a strategy in the past for whatever industry you're in, and that strategy has to shift. The messaging has to shift. And it's partly because what the consumer is looking for has changed, but it's also what makes sense to the consumer, and how, like Perna was saying, you can't present an office full of coworkers. Like, that's not the normal anymore, right? So if you show that, you feel out of touch. And this ad that you see here for automotive, well, okay, great, new Camrys, choose from 15 in the showroom, come and visit to meet our advisors. Right, a lot of people would probably prefer not to meet the advisors, not be in the showroom, just have the car delivered to their house for a test drive. And so the problem is, this is a lot of work, right? You have a lot of ads based on the old messaging. Now you have to shift them to the new messaging. And so you can actually use template-driven ads and technologies available from both Microsoft and Google to automate this. And one of the bullet points that was in Perna's deck was use the if-then type of methodology. And basically what that means is you can use business data and ad customizers. And if you don't know about these features, just go and Google them. But look for ad customizers. And so what you can do is you can submit a list of locations where you want your ads to show, and then some piece of text that corresponds to what's actually happening in that location. And so now in bulk, you can actually have different ads depending on what is happening in each of the states where you operate, or each of these cities where you operate. And as we know, the COVID regulations do differ from county to county, sometimes city to city, right? So you may have to have a different ad just for a dealership location that's just 20 miles down the road. That's really difficult to do, but business data makes it easy, because it basically lets you say, we're just going to pull in the call to action piece from that second column, and we're going to render that depending on what location we've detected that user is in. So now we show the correct ad to the correct user. There's third-party tools like Optimizer can do this for you, but you basically write a bit of logic and you say, if the location is marked as open in our business data, then we're going to show something that says one thing, and if it's not open, we show you a different thing in the ad text. So automation is going to be your friend in all of this. And then Perna also talked about audiences, and I just want to flag audiences again as a great way to drive business and go through the recovery here, right? So find your consumers who are ready to buy. So you have targeting capabilities for in-market audiences, for specific verticals, like people looking right now to purchase vehicles. And not just any vehicle, you can find people who've been shopping for your specific brand. If you have limited dollars because your management team is becoming really cautious, is trying to preserve cash, then what better way to spend that limited budget you still have on the thing that's most likely to convert in the short term? Now, it's a strategic decision, right? Like, I would advocate you still keep your upper funnel going, because you don't want to dry up all the leads and 2 months down the line, find yourself with nobody interested in your brand and your dealership. But if you really need to focus that spend right now, in-market audiences are a great way to do that. And then from talking to dealerships, the other thing we really see is that one way to keep the lights on when perhaps fewer people are buying vehicles is to remarket to your existing audiences. So you have your customer lists, you know who bought a car at your dealership, you know when they bought it, you can kind of guesstimate how many miles they've probably driven by now, and you can market to that segment that probably in need of an oil change, of service for their car, right? Service continues to be a necessity. People are still going to buy service, right? So remarket to your existing audiences and tell them it's not just about buying a car, but it's also about bringing it in and keeping it finely tuned. So automation really does keep your business running is what we think. And so I'm not sure all the examples will be included here, but one really fundamental thing, especially in travel, where you have hotels in different cities and they might have different deals. When it comes to flights and you have different city pairs, and some city pairs are no longer operating, some are operating on limited capacity, some of them have really good deals. There's so much data, right? Like you're not going to manually create all of these ads. So put in place a strategy with PPC where you take whatever structured data you have, you feed it through a template, and that generates the campaigns and the ads and the right keywords and the right messaging, so that at the very least, you know, your base level is going to be right there. Here's a customer of ours, so David Johnson. He's basically saying that by automating his ads, 25% reduction in cost per lead. And again, in times when money's a little tighter because management, tightening the purse strings, having those cheaper leads is actually really, really valuable. Plus, he's able to do this at a much broader scale. There's another slide I didn't put in here, but in talking to some car dealerships, the ones who had that sort of automation before COVID, well, when COVID happened, all of a sudden their staff could not go to the office anymore. So they were operating at really half capacity for the marketing team. But the digital marketing director was confident because he knew his ads would automatically update based on what cars were still available. So he knew he was not wasting his ad spend on things that were not actually for sale anymore. So these are the reasons why automation can really help you. And now one big part of automation, I believe, is really alerts, right? So Google and Microsoft, they can automate a lot of stuff for you, but you still want to monitor that. And that's one of the things I talk about in my book, is that automation is great, but you still need a pilot in the seat, in the cockpit, to really take a look at, are these automations looking at the right signals, making the right decisions, or are they going off the rails because something unusual has just happened? And COVID is pretty unusual, right? So how's the whole system responding to this? So one thing that we started to notice was, like I said before, every location in the United States behaves differently now. If you were Best Buy and you have locations across every state, you can no longer just have one message across the country that says, come to the store to buy a TV. Because in some places you cannot go to the store. In other places you can go to the store, but you can't go in. You have to talk to someone outside the store and then they'll put the TV in your car, right? So what we wanted to do was look at anomalies. So we have a script, and scripts are amazing. Scripts are an amazing tool for automating some of these alerts that you might want to set up. But what we do is we look at what is the typical performance for a certain day of the week in a certain location. And if that performance is more than, say, 20% different, we alert you. So now you, as a car dealership operating 15 locations, one day you get an email and it says, hey, look, in this one location, in this one county, your volume is way down. And maybe you didn't know, but government regulation just changed as COVID continues to develop. And so now you can actually go and take a strategic call on what you need to do based on this insight that something has once again changed, right? And so you get all this data in a spreadsheet, you get it in an email, so you can really filter it down to exactly what you want to see. All right, so I do have a lot more slides. I don't have any time, but we'll put in the new slides when we send out the deck. And if anyone has questions, my email is not on there, but it is frederick@optimizer.com. And I'll be happy to talk more to anyone who wants. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Frederick, we'll make sure to add your email, but thank you. Great insight. Your audience is a key automation alert, and pivot fast as you are changing, as you're seeing change in strategy. With that, we are gonna have Ilya. So Ilya, do you want me to?
Yeah, you can drive.
Perfect, perfect. Go ahead.
So the next section will cover and how we're putting it all together. And as you will see in a second, there are really 4 components of the strategic process. The first piece is really kind of looking at the demand and the shifts that have happened there. So you really have to understand kind of what are the new relevant audiences. I mean, maybe your persona is still, relatively similar what it used to be, but their needs have changed. They are not going to be behaving the same way as they have as, the prior speakers have mentioned. Then after you identify, who those people are and what their needs are, how are you going to target them? How are you going to make sure that you go after the locations, after the device trends in in the most effective way. And in conjunction with all of this, absolutely don't forget about leveraging your own audiences. I mean, recovery is happening. The data shows it. There are already people coming to your site on their own. So absolutely speak to them. This is your best way to rebuild loyalty. After you've done step 1 and step 2, then you're ready to deploy messaging, because you know who you're going to be talking to and how you need to be talking to them. How? With confidence. Make sure that you convey that your business is open, that you're ready to do business, that you've taken all the cleanliness precautions. Really make sure that people feel that you have done everything necessary to really be ready for the new normal. And then the last stage is really around conversion, because after the people have done after you've done everything, you have to still give them the incentive. The last stage is about making sure you close that deal. The competition's back. You have to compete, but you're not going to be in the position to compete if you do not do that with the right people at the right time, and you haven't given them the confidence to want to be doing business with you. So as we're going to show you next slide. So there really is a fundamental shift, right? For whether it's for travel, it's now a lot more focused on leisure. If it's automotive, people are really having a need for different types of products. In this particular case, we're diving into keywords to really understand what that means specifically. Search is important. More than 90% of all the digital activity starts there. But more importantly, it's a great research tool, because you can see specifically what is that people are interested in. So in the case of travel, it's attractions, it's activities, and that will really help you understand what type of package you need to be putting together, what your value proposition should be, and how you should be speaking to people in your messaging. Targeting. So targeting is still very local and very regional, as the Sojourn research has shown, and the other speakers have alluded to as well. Driving is absolutely critical, and that's really making all the other trends come around. The queries for everything to do with driving or directions has risen over 4x since April, and by and large that will continue driving the recovery. So if you're a Dallas-based business, I mean, yeah, the South is going to be your focus, but it's really mostly Texas and a couple other states. But you have to monitor this. As Frederick was just mentioning with scripts, and other speakers have alluded, what we're talking about to you today is not going to be the same 2 weeks from now or a month from now. So for now, this is really the best way to get into the game. If you've been sitting on the sidelines, go target it, be specific, but monitor as this evolves. Messaging. Messaging is going to be really critical, because you have to balance several priorities. Like a lot of us have alluded today, you have to make sure you talk to the language that the consumer will feel comfortable with, and you have to rebuild their confidence. Yes, empathy is important, but then you have to take it one step further. You have to tell them that you're ready to welcome them back, that you have clean, quiet, safe rooms if you're a hotel, that you have new opening hours, you have the flexibility to deliver cars to their doorstep, right? And at the same time, then you have to give them the confidence to actually do business with you. The confidence and the empathy opens the door, but everything else will ensure that people will walk through that door and they will transact. And limited time offers are a great way to enhance this, because it creates urgency, it gets people excited. It also lets them know that, these deals are not going to last forever, and they won't. In a month from now, hopefully we'll be way onto recovery and we'll be into growth. So now is really the moment for, people to wake up and, let them realize that the new reality is here. A lot of what we're talking about also will have to be done in an omni-channel fashion, right? It's not just about paid search or display or social. It's really making sure that you're doing this holistically, that at every touch point, and even if it's offline, that the same messaging, the same incentives are present. And this continues all the way to the website, which is what we're talking about next. The website is really your hidden weapon, because we can target with digital media everybody as effectively as possible. We can put the right message in front of them, but eventually they will need to consume all the content that you have. And all that content needs to act in a reinforcing way. Here we have an ad, which, yes, talks about the best summer rates ever. Enjoying a getaway, the business is open, yes, but they are remembering to put site links just in case people want to explore
Hello, Ilya. Hello. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. With that, I guess I can take it on. And yes, please make sure your ads are, crystal clear, targeting, and then ensuring that your messaging.
Additional content around making sure that every these that could possibly be relevant for them, so that they have all of that for their comfort and their peace of mind. And devices, absolutely critical. Desktop content is key. So invest your energy there while balancing the mobile exposure. I mean, people will have different behaviors in different industries. So, you'll need to balance both.
1 second. I think there was some glitch. Let's start with this one. Is that okay? I think we freeze a little bit. So let's go ahead with this slide.
Right. So as I was saying, building out content is going to be very important, because digital media cannot survive on its own. It really needs to have a reassuring content and reinforcing content for people to feel comfortable to continue their journey and explore and transact. This is also a good time to revisit the device strategy, because desktop is absolutely rising and it is absolutely key, but that will vary again by targeting strategy, by industry, by location, and people are ultimately engaging in multi-device behavior. They might research on mobile, but they might convert on desktop. People have been glued to their phones for a very long time. So don't completely discount mobile, but absolutely invest in creating your full form of content on desktop. This shows you a full flow of how all of this would come together, starting with identifying keywords, whether it's search or your audiences, whether it's your marketing and display, making sure that that messaging is completely aligned with your targeting strategy, and then finally taking it to a landing page where that message can be reinforced. We've talked a lot about B2C, but I wanted to make sure we spend a little bit of time on B2B and the services industry. For those situations, your website will be even more critical, because it's just hard to get the full value of your services in an ad or throughout the prior user experience. So making sure that the value of your gated assets and your ungated assets is clearly communicated upfront above the fold is paramount, because that's going to be the incentive for people not to bounce. Exploring content is going to be even more critical for anybody who is engaged in servicing high-ticket, high-consideration items. Of course, the form has to be as clean and as seamless as it can be. But ultimately, again, it's back to content. We've spoken a lot about what to do with sourcing traffic, but bear in mind that your content has to be right there as a very powerful co-pilot for your digital media strategy to succeed. So to sum it up, target the right people in the right place, research keyword trends, use search as a barometer for how the situation is evolving, focus your call to action on health, safety, and value, engage in remarketing, slice and dice those audiences. Purna has given some great examples on how to do that. And finally, as Fred was saying, scale this with automation and continuously revising your budget channel mix.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. With interest of time, Benny, you're going to be sharing some case study. And guys, I know there are a lot of questions, but we are going to just take question right after case study. Benny has some great example. Go ahead, Benny.
Yes, I do, Beno. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I think some wonderful speaking. Purna talked about how paid search is a recession-proof, steady shift, right? So true, because we've seen that by example. Frederick spoke about automation and how automation can help you stay on top of things. And we have exactly those case studies here to prove, right? So what we have seen is that in all our key markets, we have seen steady growth and consistent performance. Here's an example of a wonderful hotel property in Florida. What we were able to do here is come up with targeting for key local markets with research, right? And then marry that with an exciting offer, a local drive-by offer, and a custom landing page. And you have the results to see, right? We were able to drive conversions threefold and conversion rate by more than twofold, right? All during the pandemic itself. Of course, there was a dip during the pandemic, but by evolving the campaign, by moving from a nationwide focus to local markets, we were able to, come up with conversions that were really fruitful for the customer. Can we have the next slide, please, Benu? Another example of what we did for an Arizona hotel property. Like, we took an offer that was always there and packaged that as a drive-by local resident offer, and make sure that the ads communicated that, used all the site links, and with automation, bringing about audiences and targeting them in such a fashion that when the account reopened or the campaign restarted, we had exciting performance, right? 5x growth in transaction, 14x growth in conversion rate. And this continues to grow because we are constantly monitoring this with automation. We're running scripts on this account, like several others, like Frederick was talking, and all of that helps us to be on top of performance and continue to give great performance. Next slide, please, Manu. It's an example of what we did for an automotive customer of ours, right? Here, we were able to come up with a landing page that had great user experience. It basically conveyed the message and the value that the dealership had for all its customers. And even though there was a slight drop during the pandemic, we were able to quickly gain that, right? With automated bid management and an exciting ad. So a combination of local targeting, great ad message, landing page that's great user experience has definitely helped in this case. We were able to decrease the cost per lead by about threefold and increase the leads that we generated from this campaign by twofold within a span of 2 months. With that, I'll have Benu summarize the entire presentation. Thank you so much, Benu.
Thank you so much, Benny. Really appreciate it. I know there are a lot of questions. So I'm just going to take 1 more minute. I guess this is our new funnel. Marketing funnel starts with consumer and market insight. I know there are questions regarding, is the drive-by trend same in Latin America? Absolutely. People are comfortable driving. They're comfortable. So yes, we need to pivot our strategy going globally to nationally to more domestic to near drive-by market. And it's actually happening for every industry, right? So you can, QSR, Starbucks, or all these, QSR have changed. The audience are not piling up or standing 5 in the morning. So understanding who is our audience today, using some amazing tool which Poorna and Frederick, everybody talked about to understand search trend and consumer trend and marketing trend and taking business insight to come up with your new strategy. The very first thing, top funnel is now building confidence. In fact, building confidence is more important than anything else, because if people are not going to be confident working with you, whichever industry it is, there is a lot of demand. So a lot of choices as a consumer has to go somewhere else. So your messaging really, really matters, right? We have so many clients, they are doing phenomenal work just coming out of pandemic and going through the recovery stage. But how are they communicating that message, right? So your ad copy to keywords to count structure, and Poorna talked about it, even Frederick. I have the same insight that if you look at a picture of a group of folks having fun at the bar, you're gonna cringe and say, oh my God, is it really even safe? So your ad copy to keyword to account strategy, landing page, all has to have same messaging across and same sentiment across. Number 3 is building demand. Once you have that, selecting right channel, your right audiences, really remarketing and ensuring that those audiences are, right audience who are going to invest with you. And then ensuring that you are doing automation, you are changing as you are changing shift in consumer demand. And of course, your targeting option. And with that, and then last but not least, limited sense of urgency, some packaging, right? It's, Airbnb talked about that why shopper is very price sensitive today. And if we can have great offer with sense of urgency, and then once consumer comes in, we build trust. You have, when they are working with you, building trust across the way. So that's really our new marketing funnel. And I know I'm 5 minutes over and there are a lot of questions, but we do have this, I know there are a lot of requests for paid, and we are offering this for first 30 attendees. If you want us to review your paid campaigns and your analytics, please do let us know. Happy to help, happy to give you guys insight. With that, I want to thank all the speakers for their time, and we can definitely open it up. We have few questions, and I think if speakers can just enable, I know Poorna and Kurt had to hop onto another calls, but I guess the very first question is that, so Frederick, if you can help answer this, do you have a frequency target for a campaign? You set up some kind of a frequency targeting for the campaign, or anybody else?
I mean, I guess let the data speak for you, right? And do a few tests on it. But I think the issue is that so much with remarketing, people and consumers find it creepy and annoying because you forget to put in a frequency cap. And so now your consumer's seeing your ad a gajillion times and they get annoyed at you as opposed to wanting to buy from you. So I would say put that frequency cap based on that, exactly what the number is, like you can play with that.
Wonderful. Ilya, what are your thoughts on it?
I think, as Frederick was saying, free marketing, it's absolutely crucial, but I think you also have to align it with your messaging, right? You know, people will ultimately look at advertising, whether is it valuable or is it not, right? So for people who need some confidence building, who need you to reawaken their dreams for travel or passion to finally, you know, buy that bag that they've been saving for, and now they finally might have to go out and, you know, wear it with their friends. You know, yeah, maybe you need to have a slightly higher frequency cap because you have to keep reminding them, but change your creative around. Don't show them exactly the same ad, you know, combine it with an ad rotation. So I would say, yes, set frequency caps, make sure they're different, make sure they're customized based on what you're saying and based on the target audience and the funnel, the place where that audience is in your funnel.
Yeah, and that's great. And I mean, I would even say, like, don't think about just frequency capping, but like Poorna was saying, like you have audience lists at different lengths. And like be strategic about that, and then think in your business, like once somebody starts shopping for whatever it is you sell, like how long does it typically take for them to convert? Try to find some of the more recent data as things have shifted, but like that's probably another indicator you should have, right? So it's not just a frequency cap, but also how long, because at some point you have to assume either the consumer is not interested or they bought from someone else. So stop bothering them and stop wasting your money. Or shift the offer to something that might be complementary, right? So maybe they booked that hotel in Orlando, but they don't have the Disney World tickets yet. If you sell that, or if you sell the flights, if you're you know, more of an OTA, then that might be an opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think some of you folks have tried to sign up as audit. Absolutely, we'll make sure whoever is signed up, we are taking care of it. With that, there is one more question around drive-by marketing in Latin America. I know Sojan had to drop off, but any insight, Benny, Frederick, India, is the trend outside US is same as within US, drive-by market? And is it the best thing, all these strategies recommended that go focus around your audience, be local, really build your audience list? Do they still apply for other markets outside US?
I'll take a stab, and I know other guys feel free to chime in. I think, you know, it's not so much as thinking about internationally or country or region. It's based on the industry and based on the human interaction, right? You know, everybody worldwide has had to go through confinement. All of us have had the same limitations of not being able to do what we need to do, what we've been used to do, right? And all of us are cautious as we start going back to our old habits and our old ways. So, you know, being local is what's most natural, right? So you're going to be trying to drive, you're going to maybe try to walk somewhere. So whether you're a bank, a grocery store, a car dealership, you know, focusing on your immediate community is going to be most important. Also, rebuilding confidence in your local community is what's also going to help you fuel your growth. If you cannot take care of your community, your aspirations for, rebuilding your big brand and doing business on a larger scale, might not work out as well. So I would definitely encourage everybody to first, go back, try to do, a little bit, but do it really, really well. Focus on your local, your location or your region, and then branch out. And now, of course, different parts around the world, work a little bit differently. In Europe, trains are a little bit more popular, right? Sojourn talked about how inter-region flights are happening in that part of the world, which might be comparable to a domestic flight from, say, Chicago to Los Angeles in the US. But ultimately, things are not going to be global for a while, and things are not going to be continental for a long time. It's really going to go pace by pace. I don't know if other speakers have anything else to add.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not even country by country. Like for me, literally, if I go 10 miles down the road to a different county, not country, but like Santa Clara County to San Mateo County, grouping of cities for international viewers may not make sense, but it's basically the equivalent of a province, if you will. Things change, right? So, and the only way that I can grasp what's going on is to look at the data. And so the tools that we've shown you here today, those tools work for Latin America. So run through them. If you need a hand, Milestone had that great offer for the first 30 to actually help you with it, because that's all they do, right? So take advantage of all these great tools and then the great experts that are on the call today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Awesome. So I think we are almost at time. Thank you so much. And guys, the webinar is recorded. We are going to be posting it. It is on Facebook, and we are also going to be sharing the deck. We will also let all the folks who have submitted the request, will let you guys know too. If there is anything we have not answered for you, please feel free to reach out. I'm sure our team is gonna respond right away. But with that, stay safe. Thank you so much. Really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.